Hi, welcome back to the channel. My name's Rebecca, I'm 44 years old and I used to suffer from multiple sclerosis, but I no longer experience any of the symptoms since starting the carnivore diet 2 years ago. Today's video marks my 2-year carniversary, give or take a few days. So I wanted to do a video that would kind of give an overview of how the past 2 years have been. So some of the things I'm going to cover in this video are the reasons I started the diet, the biggest changes that I've noticed, some of the challenges that I faced, what I eat in a typical day, things that I've learnt, and some advice for beginners. So why did I start the diet? Well, if you've been following my channel, you will know that I have multiple sclerosis. I was diagnosed in 2016. And so it's been nearly 10 years since the diagnosis. There was a time when I was so ill that I was using a wheelchair and I was completely isolated and I was on a cocktail of drugs and I was completely depressed and I did not think that I had a future. So by the time I came round to starting the diet 2 years ago, I had made some improvements because I'd been living on a mountain for a few years in a much purer environment, away from the stress and the toxicity of the city. And I'd been working on reducing my stress and getting well as best I could, getting lots of sunlight and starting fresh in Spain. I'm from the UK. And that was going well to some extent. So I was also in if you've been following my channel, you'll know I was also in a bad relationship. So that was my situation 2 years ago. Yeah, I was surrounded by, I don't really want to go into it, but I was surrounded by a lot of toxic people who I allowed into my life because my boundaries were completely down and I was lonely and vulnerable because I was still struggling with MS. So I allowed the wrong people into my life and I trusted the wrong people. So that is a big part of my condition, because when you have a chronic illness, it's not just physical, it impacts you on every level of your life. So psychological and emotional things were still a big part of it. So I had tried a diet before. I had tried a diet that is specific to multiple sclerosis. It was called the OMS diet, Overcoming Multiple Sclerosis. And that diet, which I stuck to for a couple of years while I was still in the UK, that diet eliminated all saturated fats. So it was basically vegan, except that it did include fish, but it was more than just vegan. It meant that you couldn't have processed foods. So it was whole food, vegan, and that was because seed oils weren't permitted because of the saturated fat. So I did learn a lot from that diet and I did enjoy it. I enjoyed being conscious of eating well. And I definitely looked better on that diet. My skin cleared up and, you know, I lost weight on that diet. And it did bring something positive to my life, but it certainly didn't help with my symptoms. So that's a previous diet that I did try for my MS. When I moved to the mountain, I let that diet go because it was much harder living off grid and it was much more tiring driving to the supermarket and coming back up the mountain again. So I would just reward myself with whatever was easiest, which would be usually frozen pizza or just, you know, pasta dishes, things like that. So I was carb heavy 2 years ago, just before I started the diet. I really couldn't tell you what made me decide to go ahead and start the carnivore diet. I'd heard about it about a year before on YouTube, and it was Kelly Hogan's story that stood out to me. So I watched an interview with her, and then YouTube kept suggesting more videos on the topic of the carnivore diet. And what struck me about the people in the videos was just how well they looked, how healthy they looked. So that, I suppose, it just sort of gradually sunk in that this was not crazy. This was something that lots of people were doing and it was of benefit to them. I had no idea that it could possibly help me with my MS. That I did not know. And I started the diet not really having much hope invested in it in that respect. I think it was probably because I had reached my 40s and I was starting to bloat because of all the carbohydrates, and I think I just wanted to be my best self. But within a month, something incredible had happened. My body had completely changed. I felt strength returning. And that's something I hadn't experienced on my previous diet that I tried. Strength, my core strength came back. and my memory came back. And this was astonishing because I'd got used to having a 3-second memory, and my memory for faces was gone completely. It was very distressing. It would cause me a lot of social anxiety, especially moving to a new country. Everybody's new. I didn't know anybody in Spain when I moved here. And so I was meeting lots of new people all the time, people that I'd seen in face masks that suddenly were taking off their face masks, and now I didn't have an excuse for not recognizing them. And it was very distressing often. And my memory, I have to say, my memory for faces has never really come back to a full extent, but my general memory, my short-term memory has returned. And I can hold conversations now, and I can actually speak Spanish again, because I struggled to speak Spanish when I first moved out here. Even though I used to speak Spanish quite fluently, I'd lost that over the course of being ill and isolated. And so, yeah, so all of these things which I was finding difficult about living in Spain, and a new country, a new environment, learning a new way of life, the cognitive issues that I had suddenly went up a level, and I was able to adapt better to living in a foreign country and a new way of life and meeting new people. That was really insane, you know. And my partner at the time noticed the difference. He noticed the difference in my memory, in my energy, the way I looked. It was just a really obvious difference. So they were the biggest changes that I noticed straight away: the energy and the strength and the cognitive abilities. I have an anxious disposition. I've always had one, but I think my anxiety levels also calmed down a bit. My productivity sort of started to improve. So I was able to, whether that was physical things or work-related things, which are computer-based for me, I started to just do more stuff, fill my day with more stuff, which was just absolutely revolutionary for me, because I'd been so used to feeling like a completely useless lump for the best part of a decade. So this was everything. This was everything. So that's been the case consistently since I started the diet. And also there's been kind of things that have continued to improve. So as I started to feel better and have fewer symptoms, I realized that some of my other habits that were kind of coping mechanisms for my illness, I didn't need them anymore. So that was things like smoking, a substance I can't name on YouTube without running into trouble, but you'll know what it is if you've been following my channel. So I was a heavy smoker of something that is used medicinally for multiple sclerosis, and I think it was it maybe 6 months after I started the diet, I began my journey of giving that up. So that I did have a few false starts, but I have now completely given that up. And I don't like to use the word clean because I don't think I was dirty for using it, but I have not used that substance for, how long has it been? It's certainly over 6 months that I've been completely free of that substance. I'm not in the slightest bit tempted. And, you know, I've also just kind of incorporated new habits, which I wasn't able to. So regular exercise, I'm working again. So I've got like a working schedule now, a full life. Actually, right now I don't. Right now I'm not living my best life because I have a broken toe, and it is taking a long time to heal. It is really annoying. Every time I have a good day with it, I do stuff, and then it gets inflamed the next day, and it's like 2 steps forwards, 10 steps back type thing. Anyway, but gradually, I think my toe is healing. I haven't been able to walk the dogs. I haven't been able to go swimming. I haven't been able to drive yet. I've been putting on weight. Oh, it's so annoying. But anyway, it's a temporary issue. When you've had multiple sclerosis, a broken toe ain't nothing. So yeah, so there's been physical health and mental health, which has just continually or consistently improved, which has then led to knock-on benefits because I've been able to gradually piece my life back together again. Unexpected benefits, I would say my YouTube channel has been a huge unexpected benefit. That's given me a real sense of community and validation on what has been an extremely lonely journey for a long time. That means the world to me, to have people recognize not only what I've been through, but also how far I've come and what I've now achieved with the diet, and to have that sense of community of other people who are struggling with chronic illnesses or whatever it might be, and finding Carnivore. You know, that there's like a sense of mutual encouragement there, which is really wonderful. And I've met some of the best people, I think, in the world through my YouTube channel. It's been a real source of kindness and encouragement. So the YouTube channel's been, not to mention a small source of income. So the YouTube channel's been really wonderful, and that was a completely unexpected benefit. I didn't know any of this was going to happen. I didn't know the channel would start to grow. I didn't know that the diet would lead to me regaining my health and strength. So all of it's been a huge surprise. All of it's been unexpected. But the biggest change that has come from it, that is objective, scientific evidence that the diet is actually working in terms of my disease, is that I've had an MRI scan. It was, I think, about a year and a half after I started the diet, and that showed that I have no signs of disease progression, no new lesions on my brain. So that's a huge result from the diet, which is hard to argue with. So that's been absolutely amazing to know that at this moment in time, there is no disease activity in my brain, as well as no symptoms. So what have been the challenges and difficult moments? I guess I would say that some of the challenges have been maybe social situations where you are following what's, considered these days a very restrictive diet, because we're so used to such abundance and variety in our diets, and convenience as well. So the carnivore diet doesn't always align with abundance and variety and convenience. That's okay, because what you are eating is the most nutritionally dense and satisfying food that you can eat. So it's not that it's difficult to follow. You're not left hungry. You're not left craving things. Your sugar cravings have gone completely, and it's much easier to follow in the sense that it's not complicated. It's very easy to cook meat, and pretty quick as well often. So it's not difficult or challenging in that respect. It's easier in many respects. But then when you do mix with people who don't follow the diet or understand the diet, that can be difficult. So how have I dealt with that? I just usually explain to people that this is to do with my health, and that I've seen results on the diet, and that I'm not going to try and force the diet on anybody else. I haven't faced that much backlash in terms of vegans. Well, now there's sugar dieters as well. So you've got some kind of opposite diets to the carnivore diet, which are, well, the vegan diet obviously is very kind of widespread now. The sugar diet's suddenly blown up and it's a bit of a trend. So they're kind of like the opposite ends of the spectrum to the carnivore diet. But I haven't really run into any arguments with people, to be honest. It's just, if I give the energy out that I do things my way, you do things your way, most people by and large are reasonable. I have given into temptation, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you I've been a perfect carnivore for 2 years. I have given into temptation, particularly when I'm in social situations, out at a restaurant or at somebody's house, and they've cooked something, or there's just something there which is really hard to resist. I've done it. It's not been the end of the world for me. I've noticed that I have been able to tolerate a small degree of fluctuating or falling off the wagon. I have passed through brief periods of time when I've realised that I haven't been following the diet the way I would like to be, and then I've gradually noticed that there's been an impact. So I will get eczema. My mood will start to plummet, especially if it's been sugary things that I've been tempted into. When I have strayed, I've been able to move back to the diet because I've been listening to my body and aware of the difference. And then at the beginning of the diet, I did struggle with leg cramps quite badly at the very beginning, and I realised eventually that was to do with electrolytes. So I now supplement with electrolytes, and I also drink carbonated water, which has got minerals added to it, and I haven't struggled with leg cramps ever since. So that was a brief period where I needed to adjust to the diet and make sure that my electrolytes were topped up. So what do I eat in a typical day? It's actually changed recently, and I think that's because of my broken toe. Because I've been stuck at home for the past 2 months basically, and not doing any exercise, my usual daily diet has changed. What I've done for the most part of the past 2 years is I would have 4 eggs and a large quantity of bacon in the morning, about 11 o'clock, and then at about 4 or 5 p.m. I would have a large quantity of beef in whatever form that might be, ground beef or ribeye steaks or chunks of beef or whatever it might be, but lots of beef. Sometimes I would have chicken instead, or fish or lamb, but for the most part it's been beef. And I haven't really strayed from that 2 meal a day routine. But in the past couple of months, because I've been stuck at home, I've noticed that I've started to not want the eggs and bacon in the morning anymore, which is really surprising, because that was actually my favourite of the 2 daily meals. I would get so excited by the time 11 o'clock came around and it was my eggs and bacon and coffee. I've just stopped wanting it, and I don't know if that's because I've been made aware that, you see, a lot of the bacon that I buy is processed. It's hard to get bacon that isn't processed, you know, bacon that doesn't contain glucose or nitrates. And I don't know if it's psychological that I've become aware of the fact that not only glucose but nitrates are bad for you, and they're in the processed bacon, and I've lost my taste for it for that reason. I don't know if it's that, or if it's just taste fatigue, I don't know, or the fact that I'm not exercising, so I simply don't need it. I'm now kind of become OMAD. I've gone 1 meal a day in the past few weeks, actually. But like I say, I think that's because I'm not mobile at the moment, and I am listening to my body, and my body's telling me, you don't need the eggs and the bacon, it's just making you eat more than you need, which is making you put on weight. And the other thing about the eggs is that I'm not sure if I'm getting a histamine reaction to the egg whites. So people have told me that egg whites can cause that, and especially if your chickens are eating grain, and my chickens eat grain. So I have 7 chickens. They're free range, and I love them dearly. I love my chickens, and they're my egg layers. And so I get usually 6 or 7 eggs a day, and I eat 4 eggs a day. But I do get occasional outbreaks of eczema, and this outbreak hasn't been going away, this most recent one, and I do wonder if it's to do with the egg whites, because that's what some people have suggested. And if that's the case, I need to change my chickens' type of feed, maybe. I've learnt that soldier flies can be a very good self-perpetuating feed for chickens, or just let them roam and don't give them anything, or make up my own feed of like oats, and I don't know. I have to look into how I'm gonna change my chicken's feed. But the thing is, at the moment, it's not even that I've made a decision. I don't want the eggs and bacon at the moment. I don't know why. And then what I've been having for instead 1 meal a day, at around about, I don't know, 2 p.m, 3 p.m, I've recently discovered these lamb burgers that they sell in the supermarket, Mercadona, which is the Spanish national supermarket. They sell these lamb burgers which don't have very many additives at all. It's lamb and rosemary burgers, and then they're not too badly priced. And now I go there and I just buy a whole stash of them, and I have 4 of those. And so that's what I've been having at the moment, just 4 of those burgers a day and nothing else, and maybe a little bit of cheese on the side. But I have started drinking tea with double cream in it, which I know some carnivore channels warn you away from double cream, but I guess I've found that sort of satisfies any cravings I might have, you know, in the hours when I'm not eating anything. I'm completely addicted actually to tea with double cream in it now. But because I'm only eating 1 meal a day, I think that's kind of just keeping me sustained. I don't know. Anyway, that's my current pattern of eating, is that 1 meal a day and tea with double cream. I'm not necessarily advocating that, but that's currently where I am. Maybe I would change back again once my toe is healed and I'll be going out exercising and just working up an appetite. So what have I learned? I have learned so much. I've learned so much about food, health and nutrition. I have done a video about things that I've learned about health and nutrition. I've also done a video on truth bombs, which is kind of the same thing, things that I've learned. And I will continue to do videos on things that I've learned. So, but just to bullet point a few of them, I've learned that the food pyramid is upside down. Now that I had no idea about that. To find that fat is the best energy source for a human being has been a complete revelation to me. The fact that sugar is addictive and inflammatory and entirely unhealthy for us, I suppose wasn't such a revelation, but to understand that instead of sugar and carbohydrates, You can literally rely on fat, and you can get all the nutrients that you need from meat, and especially from organ meats, and not even vegetables are necessary. Total revelation. I could elaborate on those things, and I'm sure I will in future videos, but yeah, it's been interesting. And also the mindset shift around appetite, indulgence, and discipline. Like my body has changed in a way that I wouldn't have anticipated at the beginning. I do intermittent fasting, and it's not something that I have to force myself to do. I'm just more in touch with my body, and my body, having eaten a large quantity of meat, doesn't need to eat until after it's fully digested it and feels hungry again, and not just hungry in your head but hungry in your stomach. So things like that have just changed, like my metabolism and my relationship with my diet and my body have been absolutely eye-opening, and make me wonder, how might my disease have been if I'd known this at the beginning. If my neurologist had said to me at the beginning, look, you might want to try this, and maybe I wouldn't have lost my career, maybe I wouldn't have lost the life I was living. But at the same time, I wouldn't be living the life that I'm living now. So you can't spend your life regretting what has been lost. I'm just so happy about what has been regained and what I'm able to now start rebuilding. So what would my advice be for beginners on the carnivore diet? I would say I transitioned into it quite suddenly, but I would say probably don't do that. Like, gradually allow your body to get used to the new diet, because it is a major, if you have been on a sugar-based carbohydrate diet for a long time, if you've been vegan or just standard American diet as they call it, you might have an adjustment period, and you can mitigate that by gradually moving into the diet. So I guess I would advise that, even though I didn't do that and I didn't suffer too greatly for not doing that, but I still think it's probably good advice. I would say definitely be mindful of your electrolytes, because that's something that I did struggle with at the beginning. I would also say don't forget that there's things beyond the diet that also will help keep you in full health and full strength, and that's things like getting sunlight, grounding, staying hydrated, things like that are just going to keep you in a tip-top condition. So I would say don't forget that those things are part of a carnivore lifestyle as well. And the intermittent fasting, I would highly encourage any newbies to practice that. You can do 16-8. That's actually really easy to do, where you have an 8-hour period where you are able to eat as much as you want in those 8 hours, and then 16 hours where you don't eat, and you allow your body to digest that, and that allows your mitochondria to release all the energy. You will feel fantastic if you do that. If you don't do that, you might feel more sluggish. You might find that you're putting on weight. It's actually not that difficult to do, because you're sleeping for a large part of the fasting period, and you're not even hungry, because if you're doing the diet properly, you're eating to your fill. So that's the other piece of advice I would give. Don't undereat. Don't make the mistake of thinking that eating fat is bad, or that you need to hold back on how much meat you consume. It's absolutely fine to eat as much as you want, and do eat the fat. Do eat those rinds of fat on the edges. They're delicious. They're entirely good for you. They're good for your body. They're good for your brain, and they will sustain you. Fat is what makes you feel full, and it's the energy source. It's the good stuff. So this is a high-fat diet, not just a high-protein diet, and I really would encourage you to kind of undo the indoctrination that we have that fat is bad. I guess that's it. I guess that's where I'm at with my carnivore diet 2 years in. My life's completely changed. I wouldn't go back. There's times when I've considered moving into a keto diet just because of variety, because I miss vegetables sometimes, but I haven't done that yet, and I don't feel the need to do that. I think about it as a thing in the future maybe, but on an everyday basis I don't feel the need for that. And another part of me thinks, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, because I'm clearly thriving on the diet as it is. And if anything, I think I want to improve my carnivore practice by maybe doing longer periods of fasting, experimenting with that, maybe trying lion diet, or I don't know. At the moment, I think that I'm good where I'm at, and I just want to continue to thrive on the carnivore diet. As somebody with multiple sclerosis who who was severely disabled by my symptoms, there really aren't words for just what it's done for me. I wouldn't tell anybody what to do. It's completely up to anybody to decide what diet they want to follow. But I would say I eventually listened to this information and took it on board and tried it, and I got my life back. So I just want to put the information out there so that as many people out there as possible come across the information. If they decide to act on that information one day and it helps them, then I've done my job. All right, well, anyway, it's great to talk to you guys as always. Thank you so much for your support over the past 2 years. I'm just so grateful, and I'm wishing you all the very, very best, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.